Hello, you're listening to Sending the Experts with Georgina Durrant. This podcast is all about teaching and supporting children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities, SEND. My name is Georgina Durrant. I'm the host of this podcast brought to you by Twinkle SEND. As a former teacher in Senko myself, I wanted to create a platform to share some of the amazing things that my guests are doing to support learners with SEND. So whether you're listening on your commute, tuning in whilst walking your dog, or curled up on the sofa with a nice cup of coffee, thank you so much for joining us. In this episode, I'm so excited to be joined by Margaret Rooke. It's been a while in the making. We've been trying to organise this podcast for a while. I'm so excited to finally have her on. Margaret, I'm sure you're aware of, she writes books to empower and inspire children, teens, their families, and those that work with them. And she's spent a great deal of the past 10 years listening to children and communicating their thoughts and feelings onto the page. And her best known books, which I'm sure you've heard of, include the best-selling Dyslexia is My Superpower most of the time, and the award-winning You Can Change the World, Everyday Teen Heroes Making a Difference Everywhere. And she's written an extremely popular book as well for primary children, which is Meet the Dyslexia Club. And her latest book, gosh, you've written a lot. Her latest book is Different Like Us, a series of interviews with children and teens who feel their differences set them apart from others. And this can be for many reasons, from disabilities and illnesses to bereavements and other circumstances in their home lives. And this book shows their great strength and courage and how much we all have in common, despite the ways we don't fit in. And I like that we put that in little hyphens. It aims to encourage understanding and care. And Life After School came out on October the 21st and explores how positive life for young people with dyslexia can be after school when they use their creativity and problem-solving skills and follow their instincts. Even though school might feel tough and at times relentless, their time afterwards can reveal a world with greater opportunities and potential. And all of Margaret's books show how, with self-belief, with support and focus, young people can feel empowered to make changes to their own lives and the world around them. So always got a lovely positive spin to them, haven't they, Margaret? And lovely to meet you. Thank
And
you.
you too, and you too.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us, I've given you an introduction, I've given everyone a brilliant introduction about you, but could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and how many books you've actually written? Because there's a lot on there.
Well, when I was at primary school, I was having breakfast one morning in the kitchen, and there was a newspaper on the table. And I said to my mum, do people write stories in there and get their names in them? And she said, well, yeah. And it just blew my mind. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to write. So I started off writing for newspapers and magazines. And I wrote for charities. And then about 10 years ago, I thought, what do I love doing most? And I had written some books sort of back in the old days, sort of not under my own name. They were books for other people. And I thought, no, I love writing books. So I started writing books again about 10 years ago. And so, no, I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Brilliant. And how many books is that in total then that you've written?
Well, in the past 10 years, I've written 6. Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yes.
Yeah. So the stories they show how dyslexic strengths, and I love that they focus on dyslexic strengths like creativity, problem solving, can shape powerful futures, often outside sort of conventional paths. What do you think this challenges in how we talk about dyslexia in schools?
Yeah, it's life at school for children with dyslexia is obviously very hard.
Yeah.
The way they learn ideally isn't reflected in the way they're taught.
Yeah.
So but I think what's really important is that the message comes over in schools that dyslexia, being dyslexic can lead to all kinds of success.
Yeah.
And that's what I've found. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean, oh, everyone can be Richard Branson,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
true, that no one else can be Richard Branson. But but children will find if they leave school with enough self-belief, they will find their own path.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they find a path that's quite conventional, like being a nurse, they'll put their own spin on it.
Yeah.
And this is what I've found. And they might want to be a nurse who travels the world nursing, or so just yeah, so that would be my message, that
Yeah.
there has to be a way that school delivers that message.
Yeah.
And I know, for example, that dyslexia clubs in schools are really great at that. And I've heard about some of them doing assemblies in front of the whole school.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
And also another thing that really helps is when teachers tell the kids in their classes that they're dyslexic.
Yeah.
I just think,
Yeah, it makes such a difference.
yeah, it just makes it the fact that you can leave school and get a good job and do well in society, it makes it real.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I think that's great. And I like as well that you're not sort of brushing it under the carpet as well, like the difficulties that children will face with dyslexia. I think that's really important. You're not saying, it's just strengths, it's just brilliant things, because obviously there are lots of difficulties that children face in school, but it's sort of still being positive, which I really think is a great thing. So there's going to be parents listening to this as well. So for parents of younger children, perhaps who might be feeling a little bit anxious about the future, about school, about after school, all of that, what messages of sort of hope and positivity do you hope they'll get from the book, or any of the
Um,
books, really, I
yeah.
suppose?
So I wrote Meet the Dyslexia Club
Yeah.
specifically for them. But no, and the new book as well, Life After School. So it's about the biggest message I would give them really is do not compete in the playground. I don't mean physically, I mean don't compare your child to other children, because honestly, have faith in your own child, because they will have their own strengths and their own attributes. So focus on them
Yeah.
and find ways to support them at home. Give them that message at home that there's so much that's great about them that might not always fit in with school, but that that they can do well, And there's some children in life after school. And the subheading for that is dyslexic and taking on the world. And they struggled so much at school,
Yeah.
and they found a way. In fact, they might have got quite depressed after school, not knowing what they want to do and sort of falling into a bit of a hole. But they found a way to use their interests and what they're great at to build a career for themselves. So
Yeah.
that's what I find really inspiring. And I think I really want parents to know that, because it's so easy to worry, and worrying doesn't help any of us.
No. And children pick up on that worry and that stress as well, don't they? So if you're feeling worried about it, your children are likely to feel worried about it too, and we don't want that. I do love as well in your books that it's always about, you do spend so much time, like we said in the introduction, like listening to people and interviewing them, and really put, lived experience is always really at the center of your books, which is fantastic. It's really, really important. But why dyslexia? Why did you? So you said it started writing. You started writing because of the newspapers and you wanting to do that. But then, why did you start writing about dyslexia specifically? How did that sort of journey begin?
Okay, so when she was 13, we found out our daughter was dyslexic. And I cannot tell you how shocked, how shocked I was, because actually she'd done well in
Mhm.
primary school. She'd covered up all her difficulties really successfully. And she got to secondary school and she stopped learning completely.
Oh gosh.
And she was saying things like, "Oh, the school's rubbish," and I thought, maybe the school is rubbish. I
Yeah.
don't. And we just thought we have no idea what's going on here. And then I found a poster. I was doing some throwing out stuff. I found a poster she'd made for Anti-Bullying Week when she was about 10 or 11. And the slogan on it was "Tell an adult." And I thought, oh my gosh, she'd spelled adult wrong. I thought,
Ah,
oh, she should have been able to spell adult at 11. And it just suddenly clicked.
yeah.
And so we got her assessed and everything. But my biggest thought as a mum was, I don't want her to think that because she's been given a label, she can't follow her dreams. I want her to know she can do anything she wants in life.
Yeah.
So that's why I started writing about dyslexia. So
Oh,
in my first book, I and this was the time before that now loads of like celebrities are talking about dyslexia. They didn't then, I'll tell you. But I did get people like I got David Bailey and Zoe Wanamaker. I got so Benjamin Zephaniah, the wonderful Benjamin Zephaniah. So loads of wonderful people did talk to me about their lives. And it was quite a surprise at that time that they told me they were successful not just despite having dyslexia, but because they were dyslexic, and they
yeah.
all felt that in some way.
Wow.
And so that was my first book. And then after that, so that sold really well, Creative Successful Dyslexic, it was called. After that, the publisher said to me, "We want you to interview the kids." And that just opened up the gates for me, really. And it's just been wonderful listening to the kids, and they all know what they're good at, all of them. It's
Yeah.
been great.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love that
Yeah.
so much. And what have you
Um,
learned? What have you sort of learned along the way, I suppose, and that sort of shifted how you think about education, about dyslexia? Because you've been doing it for a while now. There must have been changes in sort of how we talk about dyslexia, perhaps how you think about dyslexia or advocacy. Has anything
oh
shifted
my
the
gosh.
way?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I've learned everything because because I was the sort of person at school who knew where the apostrophes went.
Yeah,
I was a writer, and schooling, certainly primary school came really easy to me.
yeah,
And secondary school, I found difficult, but for different reasons. It wasn't about the
yeah,
education. So, yeah, so I've learned everything. I didn't take dyslexia, probably didn't take it seriously, wasn't really bothered with it.
yeah,
And now I just think, oh my gosh, everyone learns in different ways.
yeah.
And I didn't know that. And I think back to the people I was at school with who struggled. And yeah, all that stuff I didn't know.
Yeah. No, incredible, isn't it? How it can shift, how you can change your mind of not knowing anything at all really about dyslexia. And like you say, if you found school easy, you don't have to think in that sort of different way to then learning about how your daughter thinks and how she experiences yeah, processing and literacy in a different way.
Yeah.
How's she doing now, by the way? Just
She's
having.
doing great, actually. I so I actually lost my job just as she was doing her GCSEs,
Gosh.
which was and the only benefit of that was that it gave me lots of time for me to help her with her GCSEs.
Yeah.
And that showed me one-on-one how her mind worked.
Yeah.
And I was really quite shocked at how difficult she found retaining information,
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
So and I, but what happened was that she left school and she said, I'm not doing the university thing. I've had enough education. But she went to the Prince's Trust
Wow.
and did a course with them. And she said in one day at the Prince's Trust, which is now called the King's Trust,
Yeah.
because she wanted to set up her own business. She said in one day there, she learnt more than she had her whole time at school.
Gosh.
And I know she set up her own fashion business that did quite
Wow.
well. But then she moved to a fashion company. Someone was advertising for someone to do some paperwork. And so she started doing some paperwork, and now she's a sales director there because,
Wow.
yeah,
Incredible.
they just kept promoting her. So, she's done really well.
Yeah.
And she's just used her skills, really, her
Yeah.
skills. Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Working out what your skills are and how you can put and what you enjoy as well. I mean, how you can put them to best use so you're in a job that you thrive in and that you enjoy. And that's all we want for our children, isn't it? For when they grow up to be happy. I tell you what I found really interesting. You know, when you said about when you lost your job and you were doing more sort of one-to-one with your daughter during her GCSEs, we're hearing a lot of that from parents who during the pandemic spent a lot of time with their children supporting their home learning, finding out more about the way their children learn and the difficulties they faced, and if they have special educational needs and disabilities that they perhaps didn't even realise beforehand, because it was that it was a difficult time, don't get me wrong at all on that. But it was also for some people who were lucky enough to be able to have that time with their children, that sort of window of opportunity almost to see what how your child learns day in, day out and what difficulties they face so you can advocate for them. So yeah, I can see it's a similar sort of experience you had then in supporting and seeing how they learn. I
No, but
like,
I hadn't heard that. That's really interesting, and I completely get it. That although lockdown was so difficult for so many reasons, but that time is quite magical, really, because you learn so much.
yeah,
And it helps you when you're talking to schools. I mean, I think parents should be really, really kind to teachers because teachers do so much and they have so much on their plate. But it helps if you can feed the bits of that information into the teachers.
absolutely.
Um,
It's upskilled a
the
lot
other
of
thing,
parents in sort of seeing
yes, yes.
how your children learn and being able to advocate for them a little bit more confidently to be able to like, well, when I did this work with them, we found that they were able to do that. And obviously you've got to tread carefully and speak like you say, kindly to teachers because they have a lot on their plate and they've got a lot of learners to support. But yeah, I do think that insight has been helpful for a lot of parents.
And the other thing that I've made sure I've put in my books is some details about how the children say they learn best.
Mm.
Um, and what's interesting is quite often it costs nothing to make these changes.
No.
They're very, very simple changes that can be made that they say really helps them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, completely. And your books, they don't just inform, which I like, because there's lots of books out there that you can pick up that tell you about dyslexia, aren't they? But your books don't inform, they sort of validate. Was that always your intention when you've written them, or did that sort of emerge as you were finding out the stories, etc., and listening to people?
Well, it wasn't my intention when I began, because as I said, this idea of dyslexia being having benefits wasn't
Yeah.
really widely accepted then.
Yeah.
I just talked to those people who sort of define themselves as successful, really,
Yeah.
to put that book together. And so that was quite a surprise to me. But afterwards, what happened was um, there was lots of difficulties there still are obviously a lot of difficulties with teenage mental health,
Yeah.
and there isn't the resources to properly support them. So my publisher and me were talking about this, and we thought lots of parents moan that their teenagers don't listen to them. They listen to other teenagers and
Yeah.
they see that as a bad thing, right? So like, oh, they'll get into trouble and all of this. So we thought, what if the teenagers they're listening to are absolutely amazing and do amazing things? So that's why I wrote a book about teenagers changing the world, because I thought, wouldn't it be great if teenagers could see that book and see that they could change the world as well.
I love
And
that.
the
Yeah.
teenagers in the book are amazing. I mean, obviously that's not enough. We need CAMS to have more, more money and all the rest of it. But the teenagers in the book are really inspiring and do fantastic things.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
absolutely. That's really interesting, actually, and very clever. I like that because you're right. They get to a certain age, don't they? And they listen way more to their peers than they do adults. And what a fantastic idea to sort of share inspirational stories of teenagers to sort of inspire them through that. I love that. I think that's really clever. So, different like us, that brings together children who feel different for all sorts of reasons. And what patterns stood out across these stories, especially in how sort of difference is experienced and responded to?
Well, for sure, one pattern that stood out was the importance of supportive teachers.
Yeah,
I really think teachers should never underestimate the power of a kind word.
yeah,
And children know that has come from an adult, a busy adult,
yeah,
who has spent a moment thinking about them, and that's always powerful. There's one girl in the book who, so the children, as you said, they feel different for all sorts of reasons. And one of them, her dad is in prison,
hmm,
and she doesn't want many people in the school to know. So she has what she calls a triangle of trust of three of the teaching staff who know, and she knows she can go into school and talk to any of them, and that makes school really safe for her.
Yeah.
So there was lovely sort of vignettes like that, but then there was also there's a lovely girl with sickle cell, and she told me that there was sort of some thoughtlessness at her primary school where they'd put a list up on the wall of children with medical conditions that people could see, and that was awful for her.
Yeah.
So both of those came out. I think the overwhelmingly the biggest message was that everyone found something positive.
Yeah.
Even this boy who'd lost his dad, he said to me, um, it was something like, my dad loved rugby, and when I play rugby, I think of him looking down on me, and it makes me play better. And um, there's a girl with Tourette's, and she realized that she was getting stopped by police because of her condition, and she realized she had started explaining to police, no, it's a medical condition. And then she realized that they needed training, and ambulance staff needed training. So that's what she started to do.
Wow.
I
That's
know, I know.
incredible. Gosh.
And so many of these kids, they teachers talk to them about how thoughtful they are, or if someone new comes into class, they say, "Oh, go and sit next to Maisie; she'll look after you," sort of thing. And they're
Yeah.
very proud of that. That what makes them different has given them this attribute of
Yeah.
kindness, really. Um, so yes, it is a lovely book,
No, it's
a lovely book.
absolutely fantastic. And in You Can Change the World, which I always see everywhere, by the way. I see it in the library. I'm always
Yeah.
like, oh, I know Margaret. I get excited. I sort of name drop you. You spot like teenagers in that, don't you, that driving change. And what do you and I think there's a big link, isn't there, between neurodivergence and activism. I remember when I chatted to, I think it was Kathy Wassell from the Autistic Girls Network, she said one of the key strengths for autistic girls can often be sort of activism and like advocating for others and that side of things, which is fantastic. So if you could change one thing about how society views sort of neurodiversity or specifically dyslexia, what would it be?
I think we need to celebrate it. Yeah, and just we need the message has to be really, we need people whose minds work in all different ways to create society.
Yeah.
We need it for the architects, and we need it for the long distance lorry drivers, and we need it for the coders, and we need it for society to run with
Yeah.
people who love their work and are great at it. And yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
main.
No, I think that's it's spot on as well. And I think the whole celebration thing as well, sometimes it can be a bit. I was speaking at the Test Senche last week, and one thing I said as well about like celebrating neurodivergence, we need to be careful. It's not just one assembly, one time a year, put a picture of a neurodivergent celebrity on the board and tick that box we've celebrated neurodiversity, because that's not what it is at all, is it? It's like exactly what you've been saying about celebrating like real children, real young people and their individual sort of strengths, and not just thinking always about academic success, but that child, like you said, who is kind, and this child that you always want to sit the new child next to because they'll be well looked after. Those sorts of strengths, or thinking outside of the box, or advocating for all of these brilliant strengths that they can bring. And obviously, we're not brushing away any difficulties that children face because they're real too. But yeah, I think sort of celebration around neurodiversity and neurodivergence in particular needs to be daily, all the time, to build children's self-esteem.
Well, there's children that live with it daily, isn't there? So
Exactly.
once a year isn't gonna cut it.
No,
Um,
absolutely not. And you've spent years listening to young people who've been underestimated or misunderstood. What gives you sort of hope at the moment? Because we're in a bit of a crisis at the moment with waiting. Well, when this comes out, then maybe the SEND reforms might have been announced, but we're waiting on the white paper for SEND reforms. We know there's lots of children waiting for assessments, for diagnosis. Schools haven't got enough funding. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't give us hope at the moment, Margaret, if we're completely honest. What
yeah.
gives you hope, though? Because you do seem like a positive person.
Oh, yes, I am. Well, in fact, last week I was talking at a conference of the Manchester Schools Alliance, and that was 80. So I was talking to 80 head teachers who
Mhm.
had taken a day out of their lives. Can you imagine
Wow.
to listen to speakers about neurodiversity? Can you
Fantastic.
imagine that happened? So well done for those organizers and well done for those head teachers for making that time. What gives me most hope actually is the kids themselves
Yeah.
because um, they they are amazing and they know what they're good at and they make it happen in today's society somehow.
Yeah.
If they leave school with enough, if we support them and if they leave this school with enough self-confidence and
Yeah.
self-belief. So they speak so powerfully and so honestly. And that the girl that made me write so update really. So I wrote dyslexia as my superpower most of the time. And then I thought, what are those kids doing now?
Mhm.
Because that was a book of interviews with children. So I went back to 40 of them and to see what they're doing 10 years later. And what gave me the idea for that was a girl called Hannah, who's in the books, who's in both books. And she left secondary school having failed all her exams. And she told me she walked away from school feeling like a failure. And she said, what I needed was someone to say to me, Hannah, you can succeed after school. And no one said that.
Wow.
And she spent years building her life back up. And she now has a first-class degree in social work and is working as a social worker. And she's she's doing a fantastic thing for society. And that she is just one of the people that shows that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so she was the reason I updated the book, if you like, or wrote the new book. But there are so many.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by what they'd managed to do in those 10 years.
I bet.
And, it's a message of hope for teachers, it's a message of hope for parents and
Yeah.
for other kids. And thank goodness they will be on audiobook. So if you
Oh,
struggle with
fantastic.
reading, you can listen and you can think, school is hard for me, but I can do this too. There are things I love and I can turn them into a job. There are things I'm good at and they can help me get a job. And, these are great role models for all of our children.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful. And my last question for you, what's next? What stories are you still itching to tell? And what are your thoughts about writing two books at once, Margaret?
I'm so sorry, Georgina. You'll have to explain that jibe.
Margaret was the inspiration behind me agreeing. So when I was asked to write two books at once at the moment with a full-time job and two kids, I thought, well, Margaret's written two books at once. So I'm sure it's doable. Just for the record, it's not doable.
It's not. It
Well,
wasn't. I don't have
it's
to.
happened,
My
but
kids, my kids don't even live at home, and it wasn't. It was hard for me. I'll tell you. I mean, really, where I am at the moment is that I want to spread these stories because
yeah,
I've just had two books out. It's a lot. The book about children who feel different for all different reasons, different like us, and then the book, A Life After School
yeah,
for kids with dyslexia. And I just want people to hear their stories because I think they're so inspiring and so great.
yeah.
And I just think, yeah, they'll be great for families and for our kids to learn from and feel inspired by. So
Oh,
that's where I am at the moment.
I love that. And it's lovely to have some hope. Like I said, at the moment, things are a little bit down, aren't they, in the world of SEND at the moment, understandably, because things are pretty horrible for a lot of people. And I think it's lovely to be able to speak to somebody who's bringing sort of hope, like genuine hope as well, and genuine sort of positivity, but also not brushing away the difficulties, but sort of helping inspire. through the voices of young children, children and young people. Inspire families, inspire children, inspire teachers. I think it's wonderful what you're doing, Margaret, and thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast. I'm sorry it took us so long to get this date organised, but thank you, I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I loved it. Thank you.